Good morning. Welcome all of you who have gathered here today in our sanctuary, and welcome all of you who are joining us in the internet world. It is a particularly poignant Sunday. My name is Sarah Gorham, by the way. I am a prayer practitioner here at Light in the Mountains. And in case there is anyone tuning in who does not know, part of what we are acknowledging today is the passing of two of our fellow travelers, Stella Gray and our beloved Reverend Jill, both of whom made their transition in the last several days. So I would like to invite us all to close your eyes and truly center yourself. And I invite us all to open our hearts and open ourselves to the felt presence of the divine. And to know that that presence includes absolutely everything. It includes our joys and our sorrows. It includes each and every person here, and it includes those who have moved beyond us. And so from that place of the acknowledgement of the allness of the divine, I give thanks for its presence, for its peace, for its comfort, for its great love for us all. I know it exists within each and every one of us. I know it exists in the neighbor sitting next to us, and I know it fills this room with its presence and its comfort. And so from that place of felt presence, I give thanks for this day, for the glory of the blue sky, the sunshine, the sparkling snow. I give thanks for this gathering of souls and for all that we celebrate and share. And so from this heart of gratitude, I give thanks, and together we say, and so it is. So I was just telling Alex Taylor that when I knew I was going to be practitioner today, I thought, well, great, it's the new year. I'll be able to sort of think about expansion and the new and what is before us that we can expand into. And of course, with the events of the last week and the passing of two of our dear friends, we get to contemplate other things. So, and these were my contemplations. All of us, whether we choose to be aware of it or not, spend our whole lives standing next to the cusp between the now and the next, butted up against the thin line between this life and the mystery of whatever is to follow. Mostly, we don't acknowledge this proximity, preferring to remain undistracted by that enormity in our brisk and purposeful march through our days, operating as though there will always be another day, until, of course, one day there isn't. To be fair, a constant and acute awareness for how quickly one can step out of this life could be paralyzing, future projecting us out of the business of living and the fullness of the present moment. But a complete denial of the proximity of that fine line also deprives us of our fullest appreciation of the day we stand in, stripping us of the reminder and the impulse to savor what is before us. Ideally, we learn to live in the sweet spot where one is not paralyzed by the proximity and potential of that line, but where one is aware of the finitude of one's days. Centered in that place of awareness, we can greet each day in gratitude and appreciation, alert to the blessings offered, and leaning into the opportunities presented. To be clear, none of us has anything to fear in what we call death, that moment when we step beyond the body and expand once again into the infinite. But here is where we are now, miraculously embodied and attending to the experiences offered in the moment, whatever its joys and sorrows. And of course, one of the sorrows we all eventually experience is the passing of another, the loss of one's dear to us. That is how we know death in these lives we lead. As the ragged hole torn in the fabric of our lives, as our loved ones pass beyond. It is a pain that none of us is spared. But our own passing is the bookend of our life, our last experience here, and as such can only be contemplated but never rehearsed. Instead, it is the simple fact of its inevitability that is our gift as we weave that awareness into our lives. It is in the sweet spot of that awareness, ever present but not overbearing, that we are prompted to take no day for granted. May we all center ourselves in that sweet spot. And from that awareness of both our infinite nature and our limited days, may we celebrate each moment gifted to us, allowing our simplest blessings to be our greatest joys. And may we magnify that joy and lighten our sorrows by sharing them with those who journey with us, as we do today, as we mark the passing of two great souls and fellow travelers who have so recently stepped over that thin line and into the infinite. Okay. Amen. Thank you. And now we get to say our affirmation together, which is printed on the little insert on your seat. It's in red. And let's read it together. It says, I release the old and embrace the new as I set intentions based in wholeness, love, and great joy. And now, RL.
Thank you, RL. Thank you for coming, everyone. Thank you for being with us from home. I know we have a few things to talk about today, I think. Jill and I have had an ongoing conversation for about a year of just where we are in life in the world, of this weird thing we call a pandemic, that regardless of what you felt about the pandemic or masks or vaccines or anything about that, the one thing that no one could deny is how much change it has ushered into our lives. Whether you would be ill or not, it has brought great change. I mean, just think for a moment. At first it's easy to say, nothing has really changed, but and then you think, well, maybe I need a few more moments to do that. Well, maybe I need the afternoon to really, list the change that has happened. And part of that change is the conversation that Jill and I would have is then specifically how it was already affecting Light in the Mountains, how it has already come home, and how it will unexpectedly do so in the near and further distant future, and how that would affect who and what we do as a spiritual community. Realizing already that some people that we loved so much have already made transitions, not necessarily through death, but major life changes that took them somewhere else. People that have been part of Light of the Mountains for a long time, suddenly it was the right decision for them not to be here anymore. And there's people that have arrived, that they were living any number of places in other parts of the country, that it was the right time for them to come here and land here and land at our door. So for us thinking that we're going to have to say revision, rethink, and then certainly one of the largest things that she and I started to discuss about, and was really our primary goal, I think, in ministry for 2022, was how do you even begin to relaunch a youth program in a time that you're just not sure how do you safely bring youth together. But in all these discussions that we had, I don't think it ever occurred to either of us that one of us would not be part of that equation of revisioning, rethinking, restructuring, that she and I would, in a sense, be in partnership to help do this. And at the same time, having, in some ways, no idea what that's supposed to be. I think I learned or what I think that was about, what I've learned these last couple weeks as both Jill and Stella have passed, that people say, what are you going to do today? I say, well, I'm going to my office and sit at my desk and wait. I mean, really, sometimes I would need to make some calls looking for support or to get support for someone else, and sometimes the calls would come to me asking for support. And I jokingly said, and this is not a joke, and Marcia Mostavros sent me an email this week. She says, it's so heartfelt. What do you need? And my response was cookies. So I thought, and I don't want those cheap plain wrap cookies. So there's a nice thing of Pepperidge Farm cookies in my desk right now. And so as I'm waiting for phone calls, I would eat a cookie. It's funny what can comfort you funny. And I was laughing at myself. Yeah, I need a cookie. So what? So it shows us, I think, for me personally, the breadth of change that we are experiencing and how it can come home so quickly. I just want you to know that even though, Jill's illness was maybe a month, starting what appeared to be like a cold, and when she was in the hospital, she was well cared for, that she had minimal discomfort. And then, of course, when she made that decision to go to just comfort care, that was the only consideration, was her comfort. And she made that decision in full faculties of what it meant, knowing what I believe she was leaving and anticipating what she was going towards. And here we are. Like I said, in time when people pass, I say, I'm never worried or concerned about them. Like I said, she's probably still at first day orientation or something, whatever they do up there. Or, like, oh, this is what I can do. Is there macrame in the other room? I mean, I don't know. My crazy mind, what I make up. So the difficult thing is those of us that are now like, and what is life about now? And there definitely is an emptiness. And so we can hold two ideas at the same time. We can absolutely know that the presence of God is within all things, that she is 100% cared for and in the loving arms of Spirit, and we don't have to be completely happy about it either. So we can hold those two things. I know sometimes we think that we're supposed to be so pious and, she's in a better place. She is. And to throw away our emotions and say, well, but no, I'm not really happy about this. And I really don't like this. And I'm not going to be happy or like this for quite some time. And that's okay. Let's just know that is okay and still know that she's fine and good and doing whatever Jill is doing right now. So just know that is normal and that's okay. So as we move forward in not only this change with Jill, but moving forward. And here's one thing that you might find, surprising that I've come to appreciate about my relationship with Jill. I mean, the last 2 years, again, who would have thought? What a weird thing we've all experienced together. And most of the time that Jill was here, we have so been on the same page on so many things, which made our working in partnership so easy. And there have been some things in the last couple of years that we have not been on the same page. But here's the gift in that. Part of what I saw here, and my frustration sometimes, have been so determined to embrace and make a place for everyone. Regardless of what you thought about anything, that there's a place and make room for everyone. The fact that Jill on certain things had such a different opinion than I did made sure that alternate opinion was always right in my face. And I'm saying this in a positive way. So it wasn't like this ethereal thing of wanting to embrace everyone. It was like, it's right here. And I think we've done a fairly good job to make a place for everyone. And it's still at the same time, we have to do our protocols and the things that we have to do. So that's been a gift for us, I believe. And who knows what the next step is for us as a community. And a couple words about Stella. We all have a Stella story. Stella's had been a member here for, over 20 years, but she's been in the Wood River Valley for decades. And you probably know of her. You might not even think you know of her, but you do. She's just one of those cast of characters that are pretty amazing. She was very independent. She lived in Elkhorn. Now, I don't want you to bring up that idea of a lovely condo or a nice house on the hill. So it was, when I would see Stella, I would almost always drive past her, her street, if that's what you would call it. It was a dirt road that went back not only about 100 yards, but about 100 years back in time. She lived in a cabin, and she was not glamping. So she really was not glamping. I mean, it was really pioneer kind of living, and she loved it and thrived it. But so here's my favorite Stella story. So 20 years ago, when I was getting ready to move here, I accepted the position. The difficult thing, of course, at that time was living in Oklahoma City, of finding a place to rent from far away. It's not an easy thing necessarily to do. And at that time, it seems like the rental market was a little tight, and so I might call someone from the Mountain Express, and boom, it was taken. But Stella had a triplex in West Ketchum, and then she said, okay, sight unseen, we'll take it. We have a destination. At least we've got a place to pull up the moving van. And pull it up, we did. And so met Stella to get the keys. And so there was a pretty big communal garage. She used some of it herself as well, and a couple other tenants. And says, well, here's where you'll park, but I just need to warn you. He says, come elk season, you might, as you pull in, see an elk hanging over a bucket. Right in front of where you'll be parking your car, and I just want you to be ready for it. And I kind of looked at my partner at the time and says, she's kidding, right? No, she was not kidding. But it was just so matter of fact, you might see a dead elk hanging in your garage as you go in someday. But with that, someone else shared a wonderful story with me about Stella. Someone that had just casually done business in town at a store, and got a very light relationship, there's Stella, we'll talk, blah, 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 and was talking to her one day as she came in to purchase something, and she mentioned that the woman behind the counter, that she had cancer and that she had to make trips to Twin for treatment that wasn't here, and and she had to start the next day, and Stella just says, what time do I pick you up? And of course, at first, it's no. So, no, what time do I pick you up? And she took care of it. So that's leading, I think, when we look at both Jill and Stella, the better life. We have a tendency to think of the better life of an upgrade somehow, or being what we say, quote unquote, happy, or feeling satisfied in some way. And yeah, that is, quote unquote, the better life. But this last couple weeks, particularly, as I was kind of in the middle of a dedicated group of friends of Jill tending to her needs, and everyone being distraught, frustrated, what are we doing? Realizing as I am just witnessing all this, that's the better life. I mean, when we think of it, people coming together in love to share, to assist someone they love, is the better life. No one involved wanted it to be those circumstances. I don't think, as people were tending to Jill and maybe in the room at the same time, if I had said, hey, this is the better life, no one would have really agreed with me at that moment, because it was something that we did not want to be experiencing. But just take that in. As we are sharing this as a community, we have the opportunity to experience truly the better life. And it means that life shows up in ways that we don't want it to show up, and it shows up in ways that we are not anticipating, but we always have that choice in our frustration and our grief and our sadness to allow it to be exactly the better life. And one of my most overused phrases I've made up, hopefully this won't offend anyone, it says, it is all good, it is God, and sometimes it just sucks. And that's how this world was designed. We are often at odds with what is happening, but at the same time, I believe that as spiritual beings that are traversing this physical experience of inexplicable occurrences, that part of it is knowing that the divine is at the center of all things, even when it troubles us. And one of my most often quoted lines from Mother Teresa, when asked, how do you deal with this poverty, this sickness? And she would say, I just see the face of the Christ in its most distressing disguise. And yes, this is a very distressing disguise. And it's very convincing of a disguise. It's very convincing in that I don't like it. And I don't want to repeat it. I don't want to see anyone else have to experience this distressing disguise. But they will. I might. You might. And so part of our job here as spiritual human beings is to still see the face of the divine anyway. Even if you need sometimes moments of vacation from it when you just know, I'm just not even going to go there. I can't see the divine right now. But our job is to eventually come back to that. To have a wider view as we process what we are experiencing, that yes, in fact, the divine is in all things, even the things that we just don't want to face. And I think that's the crux of our, as this human school that we are here as spiritual beings, to say as we expand in consciousness, we like to think that expanding in consciousness is just things that we like or would like to embrace, that we would welcome, to our door to say, yes, come on in. But the real lesson is that when the things are allowed to come in that we just really hoped it never would come on our property. So that's where we are. And especially right now, just know we're just going to have to stew with it for a while. And whether, I was going to say, until we make sense of it, no, we'll never make sense of it. I think what we eventually do is come to a sense of peace with it and a sense of understanding. But maybe we will never fully comprehend it until we take that last bit of journey that Jill and Stella took. So it's okay to just, here we are. It's like oil and water. They don't seem to mix, but they actually really do. So it was my intention as, say, planning ahead of what I was going to talk about, that I wanted to talk about prayer and review about prayer. And I thought, well, but this fits. This is a time to have a call to prayer. And so I thought we should review and talk about what that is a bit. That often many of us have been raised to believe that prayer is an asking for something, or in a sense, asking for the better life, and asking a thing or a being or something out there. And that's not the way that I look at it or the Science of Mind philosophy looks at it. So think of it as this. It is a shift in consciousness and a shift of energy and a sharing of energy. So first of all, as we have invited people to be in prayer for Jill and Stella, and we say, send them your love, you energetically can do that. That's one aspect of prayer. If you hold them or anyone else in your mind's eye and just envision them with love, this is not a fantasy, it is an exchange of energy. You can gift that. So as we have the last couple weeks with Jill going through her final days and encouraging people to, in a sense, pray, in a sense, uplift her with love, I absolutely believe that she got it. I absolutely believe that Stella got it. And I absolutely believe that there's never an expiration date, that you can do it right now. And it'll still work. It'll still be good, regardless of what, like I said, whatever she's up to up there, it's still like, oh, I think it does that. It's even like, haven't you at some times been thinking fondly of someone and then they call you? You were unconsciously doing an exchange of energy, of thinking well of them, of loving them in some way, and somehow they just spontaneously got that and had to call you and almost didn't even know why. So that's just a little thing of how that works. So that's one thing of prayer, that you can share a shift of consciousness and energy with other people. The other way that we look at prayer is that, again, it's not an asking, and it's not necessarily even trying to get stuff. It's a shift in consciousness, meaning, so we've been raised to believe that, oh, I need to pray for a new job. When really, you need to pray for you to become the person that can accept that new job. You can see the difference. To become the person who can accept it. You might say, I would like God to give me more love. Your prayer should be about opening up to be the person who can receive more love. So if you start to think of prayer in that way, of changing your ability to receive. And this is not receiving in an egotistical way or any way. It is changing, taking the barriers that we all have. And so in Science of Mind, we have what we call an affirmative prayer, and in some ways it seems very linear. There's our 5 steps to it, but there are really 3 things that happen here in our prayer. And if you take classes with me and before with Jill, we go really in depth in it, but there's really kind of three phases with it. So one is to allow yourself to open up and receive. The other then, from whatever you receive, to be able to declare it as true. And the last thing is simply the ability to get out of the way and let it happen. Next week, we're going to talk more about the get out of the way. It's a pretty big subject for all of us. So I want to talk about opening up to receive today. And I don't mean your Christmas list of stuff. So the first part of prayer, and it's something that is so important for us right now with what's going on in our community. The first thing is to say that before I even think about what I might think is the better life, to just acknowledge, to meditate on, to do anything that I can do to embrace the fact that God's Spirit is all that there is, and it is in all things. I know sometimes that as humans we are so fixated on having a certain thing in our life or getting a certain thing that when we think of prayer, we want to get to that. I want to make that affirmation. I want to claim and whatever. And we almost I just want to get past the saying God is all there is thing and get to what I really want. But here's the secret. All you have to do is stay in God is all there is. You don't even have to do anything else. Because here's what happens when you go into that. You open up in a shift of consciousness that you are part of something so huge and big that anything is possible. And that if you just open that door, that the right way for it to show up will have a way for it to show up. That sometimes when the smallness of our humanness tries to put it in a small container, it's never as good as what Spirit has in mind for us in the big container. So for me, in prayer, it is important to just stay there in saying that God is all there is, and that includes within me, and I am open now, ready to listen to direction. And when you do that, it's amazing what can begin to show up. Because first of all, prayer is answered not through things showing up at your doorstep. Prayer shows up through ideas, through your connection with Spirit, with God. That, again, we like to think from things like biblical stories like, poof, there it is. It's really poof, here it is, inside, that says, I know this intimidates you, but have you ever thought of taking this course of action? That's how it shows up. And prayer shows up specifically in that if you have ever spontaneously had an idea, maybe you didn't even think it was prayer. Maybe you were just, as I say, having your morning cup of coffee meditation, staring out at the windows, truly, by accident being receptive. Because sometimes that happens. By accident, I was open. And the weirdest idea came into your thoughts. And you thought, I never thought I could do that. And then, of course, to know that it's from the divine, if you have the reaction, oh my God, that's scary and I could never do that, the human part of you, that usually means it came from somewhere else, the divine, because it's opening the door in a way you never thought was possible. So that is at the heart of what prayer is. Being open to a different idea. Being open to an idea of what supposedly the better life can be, and knowing that when it comes in, it might scare you to death. And so my prayers are pretty simple. To be open, to be willing to listen, and then to have the courage to follow up with what I've heard. Boy, that's a big one. Like, not that. And I remember, of course, I've told stories many times of how I accepted the position here, and when I came to that realization that this is where I was coming, the first thing was, you've got to be kidding. That can't be it. There was a job in Oregon that sounded much nicer. But that's our reaction as human beings. Like, oh, well, no, I had this in mind. When you connect with the infinite, it says, this would be better. You're always free, you have choice, but Spirit will say, this might just work out better for you. And so prayer, in a sense, is to have that courage to just say yes anyway, to just give it a go, to just say, I'm pulled there and I'm just going to do that. And the one thing that, as you are opening up and then get into what we call, directive mode. Okay, I have this idea that comes in, and now I want to affirm it. I want to allow it, or I want to invite it, consciously invite it. It's still so easy to go to the human thing of, and this is how it has to look. The house has to be this color, and it has to be over there, or whatever, how we as humans do this. So in a directive mode or affirmative mode, I know this can be difficult to do, to pare it down, to do similar to what we did last week when we talked from the Fear to Faith operation. To get to, in this life that you would like to invite, what is one or two words that encapsulates it? And on what words encapsulate it in a form of a spiritual principle? So one of my favorites is simply to be at peace. It's a big one for me right now. I have no idea where we're going, what we're doing, or how it's going to happen. But if I could do the next part of my journey and the journey that I'm helping facilitate for you as your minister, if we can feel at peace, I think that would be pretty good, don't you? That in all the deep work that we're doing now and will be needing to do, if I could come out it with a greater sense of peace and connection, my prayer will have been answered. So in prayer, it's almost counterintuitive to what many of us have been raised with, Or even if you've gone to a class with affirmations, they'll say, cut out the pictures, put it on a board, be really, it has to look like this. Not to make people wrong, but that has never worked for me. Getting at the core idea of what it really is that I seek, and in a sense, is seeking me, is at the center of prayer. And as I've said before, it's not so much what you think you want, it's, in a sense, what wants you. There is something that is longing to partner with you in this life, in this universe, that I believe that you have set up on an unconscious level. And part of prayer is to open up to that, to get rid of all this human stuff that we think that we have to do or should do or might do. And again, not what you want, but what is calling me? What is wanting me right now? I mean, that's at the core of prayer. To be able to sit in silence, even if it's just for a couple minutes, again, looking out the window at this beautiful day and say, I'm open. I'm here to be at peace. And say, what's calling me? What's calling me right now? And to know that the miraculous way that prayer is answered again there is, it shows up when you least expect it. It shows up sometimes even physically in ways that you least expect it. Gee, I would like to have more purpose in my life, and I want to know what is calling me. And something shows up at your door, literally. Oh, not what I had in mind, but that's what you called forth. So as we go through this interesting time in history, as we go through this challenging moment where we've had to say goodbye to two people we love, is just to say, what is calling me in this moment? What is calling us as a community in this moment? In this truly historical moment of great social and physical change, what is calling me? What wants me? What is my part here? What is the larger thing here that I can just sit in prayer and say, just show me? That's really what it is. Just show me. Just being willing to open up to something that may seem so simple. Because as human beings, we like to complicate it. Usually the answer to prayer is so simple. It's a couple words. It's not this whole thing that we complicate it with. It's that spiritual principle that's at the core of the work that you're here to do. And we discover it through prayer. So I just want to close today. It's funny how you come across things. I thought of this of both Stella and Jill when I read this. And it's just about 3 sentences from the book, The Beautiful and the Damned by F. Scott Fitzgerald, which was written 100 years ago. And the story of the book has nothing to do with their lives, but something about this touched me, so I'm just going to read it. She was beautiful, but not like those girls in the magazines. She was beautiful for the way she thought. She was beautiful for the sparkle in her eyes when she talked about something she loved. She was beautiful for her ability to make others smile, even if she was sad. No, she wasn't beautiful for something as temporary as her looks. She was beautiful deep down to her soul. So, let's go into prayer right now. And let's make it simple. Let us just bring both Jill and Stella to mind. And let us surround them with our love again. Let's visualize them receiving it in great joy. In the love that's intended. And know that nothing can truly ever be destroyed, that the love we send right now is forever. And we extend that love to each person in this room and in our congregation and their friends. We share this special moment, this relationship, this ultimately great joy, and for who they are. and we know that we are leading the better life. And so it is.